With the increasing tension around the world, the possibility of World War III seems more real than ever. While many focus on obvious causes like territorial disputes and resource shortages, the true drivers of conflict are often hidden beneath the surface. Behind the headlines, there could be unseen players, corporations, political factions, or even rogue states whose actions could push the world toward war for their gain. In this video, we'll dive into these questions and explore who might profit from the devastation and why we need to look beyond the surface. Keep watching till the end because the truth could be far more complicated than we imagine. A look through history. To understand the possibility of a Third World War, we must first reflect on the historical events that have shaped the global stage. World War I and World War II were not random occurrences. They were the result of tangled alliances, rising nationalism, and fierce economic rivalries. These conflicts left deep scars, reshaping the world order and offering valuable lessons. Lessons that warn us about the dangers of unresolved tensions. The Cold War added another layer of division, pitting capitalism against communism in a high-stakes ideological battle. These historical moments are not just stories of the past. They are blueprints that reveal how nations, when divided, can spiral into chaos. If history teaches us anything, it's that certain patterns often emerge before major conflicts. Today, we can see some of those warning signs reappearing. Nationalism is on the rise in many parts of the world, creating a sense of us versus them. This has led to a decline in international cooperation, with countries stepping back from agreements that promote global peace. Meanwhile, territorial disputes, such as those in the South China Sea and Eastern Europe, remind us of how fragile peace can be. Instead of finding diplomatic solutions, nations are leaning toward military displays of power and heated rhetoric, making the world feel more divided and tense. It's impossible to ignore the influence of major powers like the United States, China, and Russia in shaping the global landscape. These nations hold immense power, and their decisions often set the stage for how the rest of the world reacts. For instance, military buildups, imposing economic sanctions, and forming strategic alliances can all fuel distrust and competition. When these countries prioritize their interests, they sometimes create situations that are ripe for misunderstandings or provocations. This adds an unpredictable element to the global scene, where even small missteps could trigger large-scale consequences. Beyond the visible actions of nations, one must also wonder if hidden forces are influencing global tensions. Economic interests, arms industries, and powerful lobbying groups could have a stake in maintaining conflict rather than promoting peace. While it's easy to focus on the actions of governments, we must not overlook the possibility that unseen players, those who profit from instability, might be pulling strings in the shadows. By examining these historical lessons, present-day warning signs, and the influence of both visible and hidden forces, we gain a clearer understanding of the precarious state of global affairs. While the future remains uncertain, recognizing these patterns can help us advocate for diplomacy and cooperation, potentially steering humanity away from the brink of World War III. Key players. In the modern world, the fear of a Third World War looms large, with rising tensions between powerful nations. But who truly wants the bombs to fall, and is there an unseen player stirring the pot? To understand this, we need to examine the motivations and actions of key players driving these conflicts. The United States, Russia, and China are at the center of these global tensions. Each of these nations has unique interests and strategies that shape their actions on the world stage. The United States, a long-standing superpower, often presents itself as a champion of democracy and stability. Its military presence in regions like Eastern Europe and the Asia-Pacific is framed as a protective measure, but it often raises questions about overreach and provocation. The U.S. government's focus on safeguarding its national interests, countering perceived threats, and securing global trade routes fuels its military activities. While these actions are presented as defensive, they can be interpreted by rivals as aggressive moves. Russia, meanwhile, has become more assertive in recent years, especially in regions like Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The annexation of Crimea and its involvement in the Syrian conflict highlight its ambitions to reclaim its status as a global power. Russian leaders justify their actions as necessary for national security and as a pushback against Western influence, which they see as a threat to their sovereignty. This defensive posture, however, often escalates tensions further. China, with its booming economy and rapidly modernizing military, is another significant force. Its assertive policies in the South China Sea and the ambitious Belt and Road Initiative showcase its desire to expand its global influence and secure access to critical resources. Chinese leadership emphasizes the importance of national rejuvenation and territorial integrity, particularly in sensitive areas like Taiwan. These ambitions, however, bring China into direct conflict with other nations, especially the United States. What ties these nations together is the role of their political leaders. Domestic pressures, economic goals, and global aspirations influence their decisions, creating a tangled web of competing interests. Often, these leaders use nationalism and fear of external threats to rally support, which can inadvertently escalate tensions to dangerous levels. While these countries are the most visible players, the question remains, is there an unseen force driving them towards conflict? Some argue that hidden influences, such as arms manufacturers or economic elites, benefit from prolonged tensions. War, after all, is a profitable enterprise for certain industries and can serve as a tool to reshape global power structures. The unseen players behind potential global conflicts. When we think about the possibility of global conflicts like World War III, we usually focus on countries and their leaders. However, it's essential to consider the unseen players who might be influencing events from behind the scenes. While governments are often at the forefront of these discussions, there are powerful forces like large corporations and intelligence agencies that may be pulling the strings in ways we don't fully see. One of the most significant players in shaping global tensions is the defense industry. Corporations that build weapons and military technology can profit greatly from conflicts. Their financial interests are often tied to war because governments purchase weapons and defense services in times of military escalation. This creates a powerful incentive for these companies to push for action that could lead to war. They use their resources to lobby governments, trying to influence policy decisions in favor of military action rather than peaceful diplomacy. These corporate interests can make the stakes of international conflict even higher, as they seek to benefit from the turmoil. Intelligence agencies and covert operations also play a major role in increasing global tensions. These organizations work in secret to gather vital information and plan strategies that may escalate conflicts between countries. Activities like cyber attacks, spying, or supporting groups that destabilize regions can make a situation much worse. The objectives behind these covert actions are often related to national security or achieving political goals, but they can have far-reaching consequences that destabilize entire regions, affecting global peace. Even when these activities are not directly linked to war, they create an environment where conflict becomes more likely. Besides governments, non-state actors also influence modern warfare. Groups like terrorist organizations, militias, and even multinational corporations can shape conflicts in ways that national governments cannot. These groups might have different motivations, such as spreading ideologies, gaining power, or seeking economic gain. By exploiting existing tensions between nations or regions, they add to the instability of the global stage and make the world a more dangerous place. When we look at these unseen players, corporations, intelligence agencies, and non-state actors, it becomes clear that the path to war is far more complex than it seems. The interactions between these forces can create a volatile environment where tensions rise unexpectedly. Understanding these hidden influences helps us see that the risk of global conflict is not just a matter of nation versus nation, but involves many players with different agendas. The role of media in shaping opinions on war. The media has a significant influence on how we perceive war and conflict. News outlets often present a specific version of events, and the language, images, and emphasis they use can greatly affect our opinions. By focusing on certain aspects of a story, such as the dangers posed by another country or portraying its leaders as threats, the media can create a sense of fear and urgency. This can make the public more likely to support military action, as the narrative presented makes war seem like the only solution. The way events are framed can play a crucial role in influencing how people feel about the idea of going to war. With the rise of social media, the speed at which information spreads has dramatically increased. Platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram allow people to share news and opinions almost instantly. This rapid sharing can lead to a quick shift in public opinion, as large groups of people may quickly support or oppose military action. However, the fast-paced nature of social media also makes it easier for misinformation to spread. False narratives can quickly gain traction, and separating fact from fiction becomes more difficult. In complex global issues, this can confuse people and make it harder to understand the full picture. In addition to media coverage, propaganda plays a significant role in shaping public opinion. Governments and other groups often use propaganda to promote the idea that military action is necessary. Propaganda appeals to emotions like fear, national pride, and the perception of an imminent threat. By manipulating these emotions, propaganda can convince the public that war is the only way to resolve a crisis. This emotional manipulation creates an environment where people are more likely to accept war as the right choice, even without fully understanding the consequences or considering other solutions. The influence of the media, social media, and propaganda together creates a powerful force in shaping how we think about war. By presenting information in a certain way, these platforms can build fear and push people toward supporting military action. The role of public sentiment in war decisions. Public sentiment plays a significant role in determining whether a country goes to war or avoids it. The opinions of regular citizens have a major influence on the decisions made by government leaders. Political leaders often take into account how the public feels about military action, as they are aware that their decisions can shape their political future. If the majority of people oppose a war, politicians may feel pressured to change their approach or even avoid military engagement. On the other hand, if there is strong public support for a conflict, leaders may feel encouraged to pursue more aggressive policies, believing they have the backing of the people. Looking at past wars, we can see how powerful public opinion can be in shaping military decisions. A prime example is the Vietnam War. As the war dragged on, images of its violence and the suffering it caused began to spread. This led to widespread protests and growing public opposition. Over time, the negative shift in public opinion forced political leaders to reconsider their position, and the U.S. eventually withdrew its troops and sought an end to the war. Similarly, during the Iraq War, there were large protests both before and during the invasion. Public disapproval of the war had a lasting impact, influencing the way the conflict was viewed and playing a role in political campaigns and future policy decisions. Grassroots movements have also been crucial in shaping public opinion and advocating for peace. These groups help raise awareness about the negative consequences of war by spreading anti-war messages. Through tools like social media, organizing community events, and holding public demonstrations, these movements create a counter-narrative to the arguments that promote war. By encouraging open discussions and getting citizens involved, grassroots efforts can influence government actions, pushing for more peaceful solutions to international conflicts. These movements are vital in reminding leaders that they must consider the will of the people when making decisions about war and peace. In the end, public opinion and grassroots movements are also powerful forces in shaping the direction a country takes to war. When people come together to voice their concerns, they can help guide government policies toward more peaceful solutions. This shows just how important it is for citizens to stay informed and actively engage in discussions about the potential consequences of war. As we've seen, the path to global conflict is shaped by both visible and unseen forces, from powerful nations and their strategic moves to the hidden influences of corporations and intelligence agencies. The road to war is complex and often driven by interests beyond what we see in the headlines. The role of the media, public sentiment, and even grassroots movements can't be ignored in shaping the decisions of those in power. The future of our world depends on staying informed and challenging the forces that may push us toward conflict. If you want to explore more thought-provoking topics, be sure to watch my other videos.